Nicholas, hello, welcome to the weird stuff.
I hope I'm ready for the weird stuff.
Most of it's pretty tame. What is your favorite quote?
This is an easy one for me. I'm gonna butcher it in the original language, but I'm a nerd, so I'm gonna try.
Oh, yes.
It is "On ne va bien qu'avec le cœur. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux," which more or less means um, only with the heart does one see rightly. The essential is invisible to the eyes. And this comes from Le Petit Prince or The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's easily the most impactful thing I've ever read.
That is so wild that tiny little book has so much in it.
Doesn't it though, right? Like every page you learn something new, and I mean it's the truth. Like anything that really matters isn't something that you can reach out and touch or see. It's what you feel and experience with the heart.
Okay, so I'm doing an experiment where I have these cards that have conversation starters on them, so I'm just going to ask you one of the questions. Name all the don't name all of them. What was your favorite place that you've traveled to? Did you just answer this though?
We'll say it's a tie. It's a tie.
What was your favorite place to travel and why?
I mean, definitely Japan was like this massive life-changing thing, but I'm also really fond of the United Kingdom, particularly the English part of Great Britain. I want to see more of it. That's, maybe that's coming. Who knows? I can't say anything yet. But um, I adore Glastonbury, and I know it is such a cliche spiritual place to fall in love with and want to spend time in, but seriously, there's a reason it is famous around the world. So I feel like the gardens at Chalice Well are the home I never knew I missed. And the moment I set foot there, I felt like I was home.
Oh, I can't go to places. That hurts my feelings when I run across places like that. What was the best part of the past week for you?
Oh, I actually had some really great things this week. So
Yay!
yeah. Um, I think probably the highlight was I got to be a guest at a class that a couple of my colleagues ran here in Central Florida. They came from out of state to teach the third degree of the Let Animals Lead of animal Reiki. And being able to share the practice in stillness, in meditation, in that state of compassion with creatures like a Nile crocodile or a black bear or tigers or monkeys or an ancient tortoise. I mean, obviously, we're not in the cages with them, safety reasons, them and us, but like it is just the most amazing thing to meet a non human animal with that level of compassion and for them to meet you back with it. So I just had a great time. Definitely the best part of my week.
I saw you post about that, I think last year. It
Yeah.
may not have been that specific thing, but I see you posting about animals. I'm into animals, really into animals.
Okay. Well, then
So that's how I relate. But it sounded so cool.
I adore this practice. I love the community. It is not my primary practice in the Reiki world. It's not my primary approach to spirituality, but it informs the rest of what I do so well and it complements it that I love getting the chance to do this with animals, but it's the takeaway when you go out into the world that's the most meaningful to me.
That's cool. Do you have pets?
We do have a pet who picked us. So in January, I took a break from like a manic writing episode and poured out my stale tea as like an offering to the earth. Like, well, I didn't get to enjoy this tea, but maybe you will. And this cat is in our yard. He like sticks his head out of the little drainage ditch beside the road. And I do what any sane human being is going to do. I meow at him. So he meows back, right? And I think we're having a great conversation. And, I switched to English and be like, okay, you better be careful because I've got all these poison plants. I grow all these nightshades and other things. Like, seriously, watch out, little dude. And he meows at me, and I'm like, okay, great. He got the message, and he takes off running and makes a hard left turn to come down the uh, driveway and up to me and headbutts me and rolls over and shows me his
Oh.
belly. And I'm like, well, this is a trap. This is a big trap. Don't touch this animal, Nicholas. And I did, and here we are.
Now
So
you have a new child.
yeah, it's definitely on his terms. He's an outdoor cat most of the time. Some of the time, I don't know. He comes and goes. He's his own thing. But we're now responsible for feeding him because I gave him one piece of cheese and he's never left us alone. Um, so we call him Chet.
That cheese. You
Yep.
gotta. Oh, what a good name. What's the worst thing you've ever eaten?
Hands down, no questions asked, sea urchin.
That comes up so many times.
Um,
Why does everybody act like it's so wonderful?
um, so, definitely, I think there are cultural expectations in place there. When I was still an omnivore, I had an adventurous palate, and I love to try new things. Even now that I don't eat animals, I still have an adventurous palate and like to try new things. But it's a delicacy. I understand that it is expensive and valuable, and so I ordered it, and absolutely, it is the very worst texture I've ever had in my mouth, and nothing else about it could justify that texture. I appreciate that people can like it. I'm not that person, and now that I don't eat dead animals, I'm happy to never be responsible for another sea urchin death in my life. Really, really happy.
I feel like Americans are not at all into the slimy, goopy textures.
You know, it's hit or miss. I've had some pretty slimy things. I don't mind mucilaginous vegetables and things like that, but there's just something about sea urchin. Yeah.
Is it Have you had oysters? Does it compare to an oyster? I don't eat seafood just because I can't. I can't.
I've never had a raw oyster, and
That's what I would think it would be
yeah,
like.
probably I've never had a raw oyster. Um, I've had raw squid. I've had other things, which was also unpleasant. I would have taken it cooked any day over not, but um, uni or sea urchin, it wins the crown of the worst thing that's ever been in my mouth.
If you're walking down the street, uh, like really thinking hard, one might say zoning out even, and somebody jumps in front of you and startles you and says, "How old are you?" How old do you think you are?
Ah, um, uh, you know, I very famously have been middle aged since I was about 4, so I think I'm finally catching up to that. Um, my great grandfather was a glass blower. I promise this is relevant. And
I
he
don't care if
passed.
it's relevant or not. That's cool.
And he passed when I was fairly young, and I'm the oldest of my generation of the great grandchildren. And even before I was like a fully formed human being yet, because kids are not fully formed human beings. They got a long way to go. He was the only grandchild who demonstrated um, the manual dexterity, but also like the emotional and social sensitivity to be able to handle these delicate blown glass objects from a man no longer with us, and if they break, there's no getting that back. So, and it was just the fact that I would pick something up and inspect it from every angle and set it down exactly how it came. Like I feel like I wasn't a regular kid. Some part of me was a middle-aged person who just got this, who understood, you have to be careful with these things, or, you just stand in line because it's the thing to do, or whatever the thing that grown-ups begrudgingly do. And like them or not, I've always just kind of done them. So
Hmm.
I've always been middle-aged.
I mean, that can kind of be good.
Yeah,
Have you learned to be a little knucklehead kid sometimes though yet?
that's where that sense of wonder and awe comes in. I think learning to nourish the inner child in healthy outlets is good. And the way we all do that is deeply personal, and as long as it's got meaning to us, it's great. So yeah, I definitely
Yay.
get to be the carefree child from time to time. But it's hard for me to, we'll say, unmask in that way in a public setting, because I just never have, ever, since
Do
I
you
was.
play with other people? This is my freaking OT coming out.
Yeah. I mean, like, I play,
Also, feel free to not answer, and I can cut this out of the interview if you want.
I
I'm
play
just interested now.
I play music with other people. Every now and then I'll play a video game with another person, but um I grew up a really solitary kid. Um and I think that has kind of stuck with me. I do need a certain amount of socialization in my life, but I don't think that necessarily comes from like play in the traditional sense. Um so yeah, I don't really know if you'd qualify what I do as play with other people, unless it's very specifically playing music with other people. Now I finally do that after a long time of not.
If you come to Tucson and you want to play, we'll go play.
All right. Duly noted.
Also eat tacos because the place I go does not always have meat in them. If you are three animals stacked up in a trench coat, what animals are they?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a combination of an anxious cat, a, ba- a badger, and a dachshund. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so
it sounds kind of
I'll make this make sense for you. So
mess you up.
yeah, I grew up with dachshunds. I love them. They're delightful. They think they're much bigger than they really are, and so they're like constantly compensating for that. So I feel like, a certain amount of that compensation. I've always been a kind of meek human, so my brain is my compensating for that. Also, maybe picking such a loud instrument might have something to do with it. Who knows? Um, and then like the badger, they tunnel, they dig, they're in the earth, they're moving rocks out of the way. But the symbolism of like dachshund is a badger hound, so there's this like inner battle. The two voices in my head are at war with each other, and then
That's a good one.
yeah, and then getting like to spend quality time with a cat for the first time in my life, I realized that maybe my parents were dog people, and so we had dogs, but I was not a dog person. I enjoy the lifestyle of the cat. I enjoy the self-sufficiency parsed out with these brief moments of, please give me love and affection. No, not in that way. And then they go back.
Yes.
And you just add a little anxiety to that, and you got a Nicholas.
Have you seen the anxiety cat memes?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that is my life also. Can you please wait? This question is different than what I have on my sheet. Please describe your favorite meal. I used to say your favorite salad, and people would just say Caesar salad, and that's it. And it made me have a conniption at one finally, so I just changed it.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll walk you through
Yay!
one of my most favorite comfort foods, which we are going to attempt to recreate today, but the seasonality is off, so I'm missing out. I adore fig season when it happens, and uh, the first time I ever discovered that I liked figs, I ate so many that I never wanted to see a fig ever in my life again, and then I made that an annual tradition. So I would put them in everything, like I was a contestant on Iron Chef, and fig was the secret ingredient. So fig pasta, fig pizza, fig tarts, you name it, there were figs in it. So I have grown to really appreciate a nice fig pizza with fancy cheese of choice. I usually do a mix of something like good mozzarella and some good goat cheese. We'll find some nice seasonal veggies to go with it. In this case, we are going to caramelize some fennel. Caramelized onions would be great, but I can't eat them anymore. They've got an allium sensitivity. And then obviously the figs, lots of that beautiful cheese, a balsamic reduction drizzled on, top it with some fresh arugula when it comes out, maybe throw on some walnuts if you want some crunch. That and a really good cup of tea. And I will just be in my happy place for as long as those calories last me. And then I'll go have some more.
That is the epitome of what I wanted when people would talk about the salad.
I'm so glad that worked out then.
That is perfect. I don't like goat cheese, but that made me want to eat it.
Pick your favorite cheese of choice. Just something that'll get soft and creamy. If you like brie, you could do this with brie. I've done that
Oh, that
before.
smells like grandmom's basement, but I'd figure something out.
Maybe we stick to mozzarella then, right?
Thank you so much for that delightful interlude with a Taurus. That made me happy. Do you have a most memorable witchy experience that you'd share?
Yeah, I've got a really recent one that sticks out in my head. So in the earlier part of this interview, we talked about my favorite places to go, and one of them is England. And this time around, I co-facilitated a retreat with my best friend. Like, she's my favorite human being on earth. Um, at least platonically speaking, my husband, of course, is my favorite human being on earth. My other favorite human being on earth is my dear friend Ashley, and she and I put together this retreat and crafted these experiences. And it's hard to select a single moment from this that is my most memorable, but I'm going to pick one that had a tangible result. And of course, we could argue causation versus correlation, but we're not gonna. We're just gonna revel in the
Nope.
mystery.
This is magical time.
Yeah. So we picked a really rainy time of year without realizing it. And so on our one big excursion day, we're like traipsing through the English countryside, through the wet and the muck and the puddles, and crossing through an overflowing stream to get to this Neolithic burial site called West Kennet Long Barrow. And it is just a stone's throw away from this very mysterious man-made hill called Silbury Hill. That's a whole other kind of weirdness. I have this strange fascination with it, even though I don't know much about it, and I don't know why. But anyway, and it's also just down the road from the Avebury Stone Circle and megalithic complex, so it's part of this greater mythic landscape. It's just magical. But you can go into the Long Barrow. It's set up. They've made it structurally secure so you can do this, but you got to walk through what feels like a half mile of the countryside to get to it from the parking lot. And we're doing this, and it's not like a fancy park. There aren't rangers, there's no kiosk, you don't buy a ticket, you just walk, and you walk and you walk. And as we're slogging through the ick, the rain is collecting. You can see the clouds in the sky moving in the same direction. You can see the wet beginning to fall, and the longer we're out there, the more that drizzle is threatening to turn into something really torrential. So I'm trying to like hurry people in. Like, it's like herding cats when you're doing these kinds of experiences. Um, and the main goal is like, we don't have a lot of time, and we're going to get really wet, and I hate being cold. So let's get inside. And we get into this Neolithic complex. And all of a sudden it's like too wet to pull out the chalk that we want to give everybody so they can meditate with chalk. So we got to like do an about face, and I give them a different rock instead. So I'm handing these pieces of sarsen stone, which is it's a type of sedimentary rock we call silcrete. It's kind of like a sandstone that's bonded together by more silica. So it's really strong. It's really durable. It's like 97% pure quartz, which is pretty good for a sedimentary rock in particular. And that's what a lot of these complexes are made out of. The really big standing stones at Stonehenge are made from this. All of the stones at Avebury are made out of this. The front face of the burial site we're in is made from it. So, we're doing this and it's like really resonant. The stone itself is kind of zingy or buzzy, for lack of a better way to put it. It sings. So we get in there and I lead everyone through this chanting experience. And to an outsider looking in, we're chanting a few syllables and that's it. We're coming out. I'm leading people through a very simple guided meditation, this special exercise repeated every day at every site for specific witchy purposes I won't get into here. But when we come out of this, everyone is like, you just go into an altered state of consciousness when you're in a site like this, especially if you're sensitive. We come out and we walk around the structure to climb the top of it, which you're allowed to do. And we stand atop, and suddenly the sky has cleared and a double rainbow has appeared over the horizon, and it ends where our van is. So like, what is the cloud called at the end of this rainbow? It's the van to take us on to the next site. But it was like this ominous looming threat of torrential downpour gave way to a very literal rainbow, two of them, in fact. And it's like that the sky did not appear ready to do that before we started chanting. We withdrew into this dark cavern and came out, and the world looked different. Literally, the world looked different. So that's one of my favorite witchy experiences.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Holy crap, that's cool. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I was convinced I was going to work in science, probably marine biology. My dad got a degree in environmental marine science, and I kind of wanted to go something in that route, maybe something adjacent. I very nearly went to school to be a double major in music education and marine biology. And if I'd gone to my first choice school, that was actually my original intent. But the horn professor at that school talked me out of it up front. He's like, I've seen the degree audit for that. It is really intensive. The degree audit for music is really intensive. We're going to demand a lot from you. I don't think it's good for your mental health to do this. And so I decided to focus on music instead. And turns out that was also bad for my mental health. But being a young adult at 18 years of age, trying to figure out who the hell you are, and the process as a queer person of figuring that out looks a little different and is sometimes scarier than the alternative. On top of the responsibilities of being in college and trying to make a decision that's going to last you for the rest of your life, all of those things are stressful.
When you're basically a child.
Yeah, and like the system is rigged. The system is so rigged. So I ended up not getting any degree, but it might have brought me to a very different kind of place in life to do something in like the environmental or life sciences route. And here I am, earth sciences drive my practice. So, we just had to like lower the threshold. Literally, it's underneath all the living systems I would have been studying. So who knew?
Can you please name 5 things that could be used to call you in a summoning spell, and how will people know that it was successful?
All right. So I actually put some thought into this one.
Yay!
So my 5 things that you need inside this circle are a pile of weird rocks. We're going to leave that open to interpretation. The weirder the better, though. A bowl of really good matcha. I don't get to be a snob about too many things, but tea is one of them because I used to work in the tea industry. A vessel that contains water from a sacred well. All water is sacred, but if you can get some water from the Red Spring from Chalice Well, you get some bonus points here. A few datura flowers, or substitute another poisonous but fragrant bloom of your choice. Foxglove would be great, even if it's not fragrant. And finally, a French horn. You put those 5 things together, you summon Nicholas, and you'll know that you were successful because there'll be this pervasive sense of someone not saying, "Well, actually." I won't say it, I promise. I'm gonna think it the whole time.
Perfection.
Yeah, um, putting it all on the line for your listeners here. They're gonna know. I struggle. I'm a whole person. I'm a flawed person, but I'm working on it.
Oh, I'm sensing something. I'm sensing.
Yeah, someone's gonna tell us we did this wrong. I just know. Well, actually, this horn is technically German, even though we call it French. No, I won't do it. I won't do it unless you ask.
Oh, I do have one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to type it in. Please say this word for me.
Oh, this is a fun one. So the correct pronunciation of this word is chalcedony.
Okay, good.
Chalcedony. And it comes from a Greekified, if that's a word, it is now.
I'll allow it.
The Greekified name of a place that was probably in Turkey, although
Ooh.
people debate over where this place was and what it was called in its mother tongue. But in this place was a river. The Greekified version was the Chalcedon River. So as this word was transitioned out of Greek and into Latin, and as Latin also morphed over time, we kept one hard C sound, but then the other became soft, and so it became chalcedony.
Thank you.
My
That's one of my favorites. The ones that look bubbly, the light blue. Pale blue chalcedony that looks bubbly. That's one of my ultimate favorite things to look at and touch.
It's lovely stuff. It really is.
What is the bubbly look called?
So we call that botryoidal, which also comes from Greek.
Okay. I couldn't remember the word, but I love it.
That one has a fun meaning. So botrios is the Greek word that means cluster of grapes. So botryoidal means resembling a cluster of grapes.
Huh. Is grape agate actually agate?
Oh, this is a thing. So this is
no.
Yeah.
It was too much. We
No,
don't have to do it.
I'm happy to, because this is a case where I'm going to acknowledge the people who are more qualified than me in some ways, and I'm still going to disagree with them. So, great, great agate. And I forget the scientist's name. So there's an earth scientist. He's got far more training than I'm ever going to have in this, far more credentials than I've got. He teaches and works for a university in California. I'm bad because I can't remember his name or which one. But he did.
You could make a name up and I won't know the difference.
Sure.
It's Jimmy.
Sure, Dr. Jimmy says that with scanning electron microscopy and a few other things, this is in fact crystalline quartz.
That's what I thought it looked like.
That gets together, and the official definition of euhedral, meaning with well-formed crystal faces, quartz, that is purple to violet, is amethyst, and so it should actually be classified as amethyst. I have some problems with this though, because fine drues, meaning a tiny layer of teeny quartz crystals, can grow on top of chalcedony, can grow on top of agate, can grow on top of just about anything within reason if the right environmental factors are present. And so looking at the outer layer of this as being well-formed crystals, or even specific rings inside as being well-formed crystals, doesn't necessarily preclude the bits that are not well-formed crystals and do appear to be cryptocrystalline, like chalcedonies would be. I don't personally call it agate except to use the common name. I think it is probably an intergrowth of chalcedony and quartz. The other issue I've got with classifying it as amethyst is the overwhelming majority of the material that we see in beautiful curated selections in museums and on social media and other places are vibrant purples. The majority of this material that is mined is not. It is drab grays and browns and just kind of neutral colors. You find it in shades that lean towards purple but aren't really purple. And furthermore, when we get some of these bits that are quite saturated purple and hold them up to the light, transmitted light, in other words, light that passes through it, does not show it to be purple. It's actually probably getting its color from something called Rayleigh scattering. That's what makes our atmosphere blue. So, the particles that it's made out of scatter that wavelength of light enough that we perceive it. But it is not colored by the stuff that makes amethyst purple. So therefore, if it's not got those same chromophores, that tetravalent iron that makes it purple or violet in transmitted light and is occasionally cryptocrystalline, is it really amethyst? And I think it is sometimes amethyst and it is sometimes chalcedony. And when that chalcedony, when sawed open, has really pronounced bands, it could be agate. So it could be all of these things and none of these things at the same time. And different experts are going to tell us different things.
I am being so shrill in my head right now.
Yeah. That was not a simple answer to a very simple
It was so good, though.
Yeah. So I almost always defer to the people who have the credentials that I will never attain. And this is one of the cases where the empirical evidence that I can see, that I can touch, often conflicts with this classification. Not always, but often does. So do we treat them as distinct individuals, or do we look at the category, the class of materials coming from Sulawesi in Indonesia together? And if we look at the whole class, they don't all meet the criteria to be amethyst, like this paper suggests the samples analyzed do. And I think we just kind of have to, whatever answer we give, we're going to be wrong at least sometimes.
Oh, I don't like gray.
Yeah. Welcome to science. It is so funny how people think science is a black and white thing, and we do the best we can with the tools that we've got, the data that we derive from it, and our ability to interpret that data. If any one of those three factors changes, then our answer changes as well. And that doesn't mean science is wrong. It means that it is improving itself over time. And I actually think that's a lot like magic in a lot of ways. We've got the tools we use, we have the applications for it, and we have the end result, which is, kind of like our interpretation of data. And if any one of those things changes, our goalpost changes. That doesn't mean our magic was wrong. It just means that we're growing. And so we get these movable targets, and, magic isn't black or white. Magic is gray. So we as witchy folks have to live in that liminal space and get comfortable with it. And I actually derive an inordinate amount of joy from those liminal spaces in science where yeah, we kind of have an answer, but also the answer isn't satisfying. That is really inspiring to me, because if the experts don't always have it figured out, why should the rest of us be expected to? Can't we just live the mystery?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Even though I remember, and this is just very quick because I know we're running kind of long, but I remember being somewhere on an anniversary trip with my husband, and we were watching something about Einstein and relativity, and I just got furious because nobody could explain it. I was so mad. Just don't introduce me to this if you don't know what's happening, because now I'm going to wonder about it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Rude.
Yeah, I get it. That's how I felt about holograms for the longest time. and now I find them really meaningful metaphors.
That's good. Hopefully yeah. I find something like that with time.
Yeah. It's all made up and none of it matters.
Okay, good.
Yeah, how's that?
That's much better. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
I had a blast. I really enjoyed this. So thank you for having me. Thank you to all the listeners for putting up with my very peculiar brand of weirdness.